Over and again, John's relationship with Yoko is a point of discussion, at least in 1969. Once again, Lennon comments,
"She's encouraged all the other talents, latent and otherwise, that I possess."
Well, I mean, it works both ways.
Yeah, we released each other. She was in an art bag, avant-garde, inverted commas, and all of us, including us two, and all the other people in pop and theatre and all that, intellectualising about there's no barriers between the so-called arts and that, but nobody actually doing anything, except for lots of poets getting together and maybe having a rock and roll band, or lots of rock and roll bands together, maybe having a poet, but never still in the same bag. So what we did for each other is get ourselves out of the bag we were already in, that we were in. I mean, we're still both in the same bag, but we're out of it sort of spiritually, out of the sort of bag we were in. Say I'm making these LPs with Yoko, that's physical enough. 2 versions, this is the next one, and the other one's in the can. And that's just an instance, and she did and for her instance, well, for one instance, I did a live show with her at a so-called avant-garde or whatever it was at Cambridge, the students there, avant-garde music. I took along the electric guitar, and Yoko did her voice modulation pieces, and that's on here. And then Yoko came along to the rock and roll circus of the Stones, and I had Eric Clapton and Keith from the Stones and Mitch from Jimi Hendrix Group, and we rocked, and Yoko came on and did her piece with us. They have a show, a TV show, Rock and Roll Circus, and we were invited to go and perform there. Well, I wasn't, I took Yoko, and same at Cambridge, they invited her, and she took me as her group. She said, "I'll bring my own band," and I was the band. I did a track from Beatles LP, Blues, and then Yoko came on and sang while we gigged a 12 bar, She came on and yelled guts out. There was also a violinist trying to play as well, but he lost out. I did a Beatle track, I did a song that it's just a song that I knew, I never remember my own songs, but that was one I reckoned Eric Clapton, and then Yeah Blues it was called. And so I performed that with that super group they were calling it. And Yoko came on and took the lead for Supergroup, and we backed her. So that was a physical instance of us both going into each other's circles, But what we're really doing is saying there isn't any barriers, East and West as well. And the Cambridge thing was done in March 2nd. In fact, you can take it with you and laugh about it later. We're in the process of just finishing off the next album, and we're halfway through the one after next. So production level's gone up 1,000,000% on all fields, and we've both got books coming out, individual and together in the States and here shortly, and lithography coming out. We just got in on the Picasso lithography, some firm views, and that. My book is one based on a show I did when I first met Yoko. I had a gallery show sort of dedicated to her, which there's no details on it really, which I'm using the press cuttings and the photographs and all that, and the reactions. I sent balloons out to get replies to it. I set all that in the visitor's book, what people said about it, and put that as a book.
Well, he sort of discovered.
That's what that is. It was just a canvas which said "You are here" when you got in. Like those street maps, it was based on that. And you went through a whole pile of cripple boxes, I think you'd call them, which was those charity boxes with dogs.
No, he's the biggest producer there.
And he went through all that. And I wrote to the critics saying, "What do you think of my show?" And they said, "What show?" And that was last May, but with all the shit that's been going on, with Apple and Northern Songs and that, it should have been out before, so I can produce as fast as anything, but getting it out is another job, so that's why they're all a bit behind time. Well, we're compiling stuff together, which isn't finished enough state yet, but there's lithography and, just you name it, and it's coming out. It's just getting it together. I had outlets like In His Own Right and Spanish in the Work, and the people doing a play of it, and that. All very cute, but there's plenty, that was one in 2 books in 4 years. But now, you know,
4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2.
we sort of spark each other off, you know, so it's like we've got too much to do. And we really have to be selective now about which things we do and which we don't. Yeah, I always dreamed of this woman that I'd be physically attracted to and had a brain, you know, but I began to think she didn't exist. She's one in a million.
Good.
And she's tough because she had to make it on her own in an art world which is as snide as show business, if not more, you know. And it's a tough world there, and she's a tough woman, but like I'm a tough guy, but I'm also not tough, you know. It's both black and white, you know, completely weak and completely strong. So if one of us is strong and the other one's feeling weak, the other one can carry it along, you know. It was like the Beatles used to do that for each other as well, if one felt a bit down. So we do that for each other, you know.
I think that's the best part.
And when we're both strong, we're very strong. If we're both weak, we hide.
And what will become of the Beatles now that Lennon is so otherwise preoccupied with his new wife? John responds.
See, they're growing up too, you know.
You see, she has a connection or something like that. And
we all want Beatles still because it's a big power and it's good power, you know. And we've no intention of splitting it, you know, any of us. I can't be specific about it, you know, but obviously if I'm deeply involved with Yoko, it has some, you know, maybe less reliant on the others, but so it goes for the others too, you know, that as we're all sort of branching out, which we were occasionally all the time, you know, like I did How I Won the War, I wrote in his own right, and Paul wrote the music for Family Way, etc., and George went off to India with sitars and that.
No,
so it's only, you know.
Alright, I'll tell you the information I got, okay?
We nip off and come back and do some work and then nip off again, you know. I think Paul and George had a verbal argument, and it came out in the paper that George and I had a fist fight, you know. So that's how different it was. You know. And sure, we have arguments, you know. So we always have. We never said we didn't.
I know.
You know. I mean, we used to bitch like hell on those tours. There was only each other to bitch. You know. And if it wasn't each other, it was poor O'Neill and Mal who got it. The brunt of four of us bitching. You know. I mean, you got to release it somewhere. So that's how we got so close, because we were tied in a room together, like those films or things about two guys or a group of people stuck in the Amazon because the plane crashed, you know, and they got to work it out, you know. And all that bit, so we went through that bit, or the army buddies bit, you know, so that's how we got so close, as being so close, you know, and having to live with each other.
Ever since the Beatles laid down their instruments forever following their final performance at Candlestick Park in San Francisco in 1966, journalists bombarded them with questions about a public reunion. Here Lennon faces the controversy head-on.
Oh, it's a possibility, but Ringo says it isn't, so that's what it is, you know. Somebody was interviewing him at the time, saying, is there any talk? And we haven't talked at all, but I know I'd been talking with somebody, I don't know, Paul or somebody, about possibly going on tour, and you know, how we'd do it if we did. And then I read then somebody asked me, it was about the same time, I don't know whether it was, you know, I don't think it was the same person, but it just so happened that both quotes came out about the same time. I was in Amsterdam or somewhere, somebody asked me about it. Obviously, if I saw all the press for the first time for a long time, they go through everything, you know, like you are anyway, you would have asked this anyway. So I said, yeah, it's a possibility of going on tour. Next day somebody rings up and says, Ringo says no tour, but he'd said that. You know, anyway, he'd been just doing an interview about Magic Christian, and of course, it's like if I'm talking about John and Yoko work, it's hard to keep it off Beatle work, right? And if Ringo's talking about Magic Christian, it's hard to, it gets into what you did in Hamburg in 1980 and all that. So it was a case of that, you know. So I saw Ringo, I said, well, what is it? He says, well, I don't know, but I don't fancy it. And I said, well, I do, so on a certain side. And he said, it'll just be the same. And I said, well, it wouldn't be the same this time, and there it is, you know, so. And I'm not that keen on it, but I think it wouldn't harm us. Well, we wouldn't do it every night, you know, so as we were sort of jumping plane from plane, we'd do it to suit us, you know, and not the promoter or anybody else. Because all this business is going on and reshaping Apple and Northern songs, it's almost impossible to talk about what the Beatles are going to do as the Beatles. They're so involved in this, you know. And but the thing we can do, regardless of what kind of war's going on round about, is record.